Force 8 winds have severely damaged an Aura home. Masks will no longer be mandatory in schools from 25th April, and a group of ramblers were blocked and police had to be called in as the Bahriya Gate saga continues. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Jonathan Chile here, joined by David Greco-Orpania. I do hope you haven't washed your car today or your clothes are outside, as the blood rain, aka Shittat al-Hamriya, is very much pouring down right now. But enough of that, we've got the latest updates and news and analysis from the island. David is here with details on today's top story. David?
Yeah, it's a very good thing I haven't washed my car since the last time this happened. Thing is, it's unfortunately not just the rain today, it's also the very strong winds, which, hit force 7 by 8 a.m. and only got worse. In fact, there was a wind warning between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. and that seems to be when the force 8 winds actually hit and the largest amount of damage was dealt. In fact, in Aura, in photos that were published by Lovin Malta, a coast-facing home, pretty much like a villeggiatura in Fekruna, in fact, caused strong winds to absolutely blow the facade sliding door into the living room, where the resident was just sitting down, minding her own business, and the door barely missed her. It does look pretty bad. I'm pretty sure you would not want to be just sitting down in your living room and have your entire facade, blow into, with force 8 winds blowing into the living room. This wasn't the only incident of winds, causing a bit of chaos around the island. Valletta Grand Harbour, in fact, had a scaffolding tower tipping over onto the road, barely missing parked cars, and this is just hours after the International Fireworks Festival opening last night, where hundreds were congregated in the same exact spot, including our own journalists, where we published, in fact, photos from last night. Thankfully, the wind should be decreasing to force 4 overnight, and it's looking finally like a sunny and calm weekend ahead. We should be looking at force 2 and force 3, which is very good for people heading to Mjar for Festa Frauli. Spring should have sprung by now, so here's hoping that this was the last that we'll get of this really bad weather.
Usually Malta experiences bad weather, especially strong winds around February, March, even though this year it is a bit later than usual. Hopefully we have come to the end of it. That's it. If you do plan to go out today, tonight, be careful. It is still very much windy out there. And if you have a home in Aura, be very, very careful as well. Moving on to the next story, I think a very positive update for many people, many parents as well. Masks will no longer be mandatory in Maltese schools from the 25th of April. The Health Ministry announced this update to the rules just today, saying that this will apply to childcare centres, kindergartens, primary schools, secondary schools, as well as tertiary schools. And they said very clearly, quote, it will no longer be mandatory to wear a mask in schools. However, schools are still allowed to enforce the rules if they so desire. The difference is it is no longer official advice to have mandatory mask wearing, and the ministry is advising that mask wearing remains mandatory on school transport. This is something that parents have been calling for months, if not years. There was the very famous hashtag Unmask the Kids hashtag that went viral in Maltese social media about a month or two ago. So I can imagine those parents are very, very excited to hear this. That said, we are hearing that a couple of schools have decided to continue with mandatory mask wearing. So definitely let us know in the comments below, especially if you're a parent. Where do you kind of sit on this? Would you like to see an end of these mandatory rules, or do you kind of want to see masks continue in Maltese schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does, of course, fall into the same narrative that we have of, listen, we're going to get to a point where we definitely need to live with this. And then if you want to take extra precautions, then fine, definitely. But we don't need to impose such precautions, especially on our youngest population. But like I said, John, this is a positive thing. We've been hoping to get to this point for quite some time now. So it seems like we're finally getting there. We knew that this had to change eventually, so it looks like change is finally coming. Meanwhile, somewhere else where it's definitely change needs to come, this one small gate in Bahriya and one very big problem for a lot of people, including Malta's ramblers. The Ramblers Association of Malta today continue to place even more pressure on the planning authority for the removal of this one infamous gate that's blocking access to Bahriya specifically Blata tal-Melħ. There was meant to be a scheduled press conference today, but it couldn't happen because representatives of the Ramblers Association of Malta were confronted by landowners on site. The media was blocked from filming, and eventually the police, of course, were called in. Now, the police did say the Ramblers were not doing anything wrong in particular, of course, but at the same time, the gate still stands, and the gate has been standing there for pretty much a year, because April 2021 is when this saga started, and particularly what makes it perhaps even worse is the fact that this was illegally installed, according to the all these reports that are being made and all these allegations, and that it's restricting an access to a footpath that has been there since before 1967. So it's been a long saga. It's going to hopefully not continue being this much of a long saga, but here's hoping that whenever something happens, we'll be able to move forward and have some updates on it.
Yeah, if you want to see photos from the site, as well as when the police showed up, as well as the 4 men that apparently appeared to stop the Ramblers, you can find it all on lovinmalta.com, and rest assured we'll definitely be following for the next development in this ongoing saga that hopefully ends soon. Moving on to the next story, a bit of an interesting international angle to Maltese affairs. The head of the European Public Prosecutor's Office, Laura Kövesi, has laid into Malta's efforts to tackle European fraud and corruption on the island, even hitting out at local authorities on how they pass the buck onto each other. Interestingly, she said that when she came to Malta, she had trouble figuring out who was actually tackling financial crimes. She said, quote, "I visited Malta and held meetings with local authorities. After 2 days, it was difficult for me to identify the institution that is responsible for detecting crimes. All of them said, it's not me, it's them. And when I visited them, they would then say, it's not us, it's them." It sounds very, very Maltese. I can really picture it. A EU prosecutor comes to the island, probably very, very strong on financial crimes, only to find that she doesn't really have a counterpart on the island, and when she thinks she does not. Very interesting to know that all EU member states have signed up, except for Ireland, Hungary, Poland, and Sweden have signed up to this office to fight corruption across the EU. And while Malta has signed up for the office, it is the only participating member that has not yet opened a single investigation. So Laura, I can only imagine, how you felt coming to Malta. Just know you are not alone in those feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a number of scenarios when the exact same thing has happened. A little bit weird, a little bit sad that this has happened also for something like a new prosecutor on fraud, after all. But it is definitely not the first time. Hopefully, Laura, it will be the last time. It was from a very long presentation and speech that lasted sometime around an hour and a half, and that, as John mentioned, also brought into light other countries, including Spain, and their level of cooperation with the EU body. But the 55-ish seconds where Laura just brings up Malta and goes, absolutely hard on it, is available to watch on Lovin Malta's Instagram and TikTok accounts. It went viral, maybe for all the wrong reasons, but there you go, there you have it. It's a watch and a half. Meanwhile, speaking of viral videos, news of an extremely budget wedding in America made it all the way to Malta, an island famous for its grand weddings. So this wedding, just for context, cost a grand total of $500. That's even less in euro. That's like 460 euro or something like that. It's been making the rounds online for, obvious reasons, especially now with inflation and what have you. The couple, Kiara and Joel Brockenbrough from California, had some really good cost-cutting techniques. One of them was the ceremony took place in an area of the Angeles Crest Highway, so absolutely zero there on the venue. They only invited less than 40 family and friends, so not the usual 400 that you usually get for Maltese weddings. And the guests got to pay for their own refreshments. So quite a lot of, really smart cost-cutting measures. I mean, the dress cost $47, which, I think both our shirts cost more than that. So of course, you were always bound to get quite a strong reaction for something like that, but thankfully, the reaction from Malta was actually very positive. You know, they were all praising them. And I say thankfully because the groom was actually on our comment section on Instagram. So if you want to have a look a little bit at what he had to say about this, you know, you can hear it from the mouth of the man who managed to save so much money.
No, he's inspired the world with his wedding. No, weddings are a massive thing in Malta. You know, oftentimes people try to one-up each other. We have had some ridiculously extravagant weddings. Even Lovin Malta's even reported on them over the last few years. So hopefully, you know, Chiara and Joel's kind of approach to their ceremony will inspire others. I mean, listen, in Malta we have some beautiful idyllic locations. You can go to Janaina Bay, you can go along nearly any beachfront. You can even find, you know, some beautiful cliffs, Dingley Cliffs as well. You can even pull up to the side of the Shamshia bypass if you literally want to do what these guys did. Pull up to the side where you have the viewing points, call over 34 people, each person brings their own chair, each person brings their own drinks, and you've got yourself a budget wedding. So let us know in the comments below what you made of this wedding, if you'd like to see more of its type in Malta. And before we leave you for this evening, let me remind you that we have launched the massive epic foodie competition by Lovin Recommends, where one lucky winner and one special guest will get over 5,000 euros worth of free meals over 1 year at some of the best restaurants on the island. We are slowly releasing the names of the restaurants day by day. I think we've released about 20 so far. You can check everything out on Lovin Malta's social media page as well as Facebook page. And if you have not signed up yet, I definitely suggest you do. I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. From myself and David, have an evening full of lovin'.